Incumbent candidates have emphasized that public schools and state college are not failing. So, if vouchers are made more widely available in Pennsylvania, what do you see as the most likely impacts, for better or for worse, or both, in the state college area? This question is timed for 3 minutes apiece, and we will start with Mr. Settle, followed by Ms. Glick, and then by Professor Cannon.
Well, I'm proud to say that I believe I am the strongest and most outspoken proponent of vouchers among the candidates. When I first started running for school board, a friend of mine gave me this button. It reads, "I support school choice," and that's a reference to vouchers. My position on vouchers is very simple. You can either have a district-centered view of education where you idolize the bureaucracy and all the funding goes to it, or you can have a student-centered view of education where the money follows the child. I support the latter, and vouchers make that a reality. Now, in the case of a district like State College, it's true. We have a relatively high-performing school district here. I don't foresee, even if you had a universal voucher program, people leaving State College in an exodus. That was never the intention of vouchers. What you want to do is create a situation where students who want to leave for any reason, either because the public school system is not meeting their needs adequately, or because a private school could meet them better, have the option to do that with as little burden to the parents as possible. It's about giving educational choices and opportunities to the children and the parents in your district, and that applies whether you're in a failing school district or in an excellent one.
Thank you. Ms. Glick.
I want to repeat once again that our district's priority is the students of the public education, that it's priority and it's vested interest. And so when we talk about something like vouchers, I see that as a as going directly against the priority of the district and the school board. You know, it takes money away from the public education and channels it to a private sector. What I think has to happen is that the school district needs to take an aggressive stand on this so that it can protect its interests in the students, the public education students. And this means lobbying against it. It means encouraging members of the district who agree to also lobby against it, so that what we can do is we can bring attention to the problems in our own school district, and instead of having money channeled away from those, keep that money where it is so that we can hopefully improve our district as much as possible.
Thank you. Professor Cannon.
Yes, in cases where you're going to have an issue that's going to become very divisive, and so far our votes on anything don't really matter because it's going to come down from the state if it comes down. But we are going to have to face this in a large way. Mostly it's designed for inner city schools, so it doesn't fit our district, as you pointed out. In a case like this, I think it's time real leadership would find a solution that might satisfy both sides, both perceived and real needs, in something that we are anticipating and thinking about early to try and find a solution. So for instance, one thing that I'm willing to consider might be that you would have a system where what I would call overcapacity incentives. Okay, so we have excellent schools in our district. That's not our problem. The problem is going to be that as we expand over the next 20 or 30 years, because Silicon Valley is very much like Happy Valley, was very much like Happy Valley is now, in some way that's going to probably happen here, assuming that the economy recovers. And when that happens, we need to anticipate that we're going to have a lot of growth.
In the field of challengers, the two of you have expressed the strongest sentiments against the expansion of school vouchers in Pennsylvania. The sitting board has taken a strong position on this issue as well, having lobbied against the proposed growth of K-12 vouchers in the Commonwealth. Would each of you articulate in detail whether you think it's within the purview of the local school board to take positions and lobby on matters of state policy? And if you do believe that it is, what additional actions should the board be taking with regard to the school voucher issue in Harrisburg? Again, the response time is 3 minutes apiece, and we will start with Mrs. Zidney.
Thank you. Yes, I have stated that I'm opposed to vouchers, and I believe I also said that I think this board was well within what it should be doing to address the issue. Our job is to make sure that we get the best we can for our kids, the best funding, and when something threatens that funding, we absolutely should be stepping in. Our job is to help fund education, not take away from it. So we're right to do that, just as we are right to lobby when the budget is cut and we feel that that will affect the children in this district. That's what a school board does. So I would continue to look at and work on developing even further our relationships with our local legislators, making sure that they understand the impacts here on the local level. And frankly, I also think it's fine to ask our constituents to lobby on behalf of their children when we see threats to our kids' futures, and that's our responsibility.
Thank you. Mrs. Concepcion.
I very much do think that it is within the purview of the school board. When the school board believes a state policy would adversely affect its students and its community, that it is their role to relay those concerns to policymakers in Harrisburg. I see nothing wrong with the school board coming down on one side or the other of vouchers. However, the board as a whole had determined that policy would affect their district, and to relay those concerns to Harrisburg, I think that's part of the role of a school district. I do think in the current budget climate, particularly, that vouchers would deduct money from public schools that are already failing and divert it to private ones, and that this would just place too great of a strain on the public education system.
Local discontent over a prior board's handling of a proposed high school overhaul was instrumental in remaking the board's composition. Mrs. Stahl and Mrs. McLaughlin, you both were voted in that year. In the past nearly 4 years, State College Area High School has undergone no major physical modifications. Just recently, it was reported by the Center Daily Times that parts of the North Building continue to flood during severe weather. Could each of you explain why the high school facility, a high priority of your predecessors, has not yet seen substantial changes? In addition, please indicate if you are comfortable with the progress that has been made toward beginning improvements there. Again, this question is timed for 2 minutes per candidate. Dr. Pawelczyk, we will start with you, followed by Mrs. McLaughlin and by Mrs. Stahl.
Thanks a lot. You managed to fit in a lot of questions in one question.
No problem.
All right, so let's see if we can tackle a number of these. So absolutely, 4 years ago, we did see that the previous school board chose to cancel the high school project. The major reason for that being is that they weren't going to be able to do the high school project they wanted within the budget that they had available to them. That came in 18% over, and as a result of that, would have had to go back through a whole new Act 34 process. The board chose to cancel at that time. When the new board came on, and I joined them shortly thereafter, several months after that, we immediately went to work crafting a new district-wide master plan. It's not just about the high school. That is half of the square footage of the State College Area School District. And what became clear was that there were several facilities that had greater need than the high school. 2 elementary schools, Ferguson Township, and basically our situation over in Boalsburg in the Panorama School. And so what we did instead was moved aggressively on an elementary construction project. That happened before the master planning process was even complete. We brought those projects together in approximately, I believe it was about a 19-month construction process. This is the fastest the construction projects have ever been created. They are greener, they're better air quality environments, and they're a better learning environment for students. Am I happy with the progress we've made on the high school? No. We've been overcome by a few other things. We've had some major administrative turnovers, but if we haven't made serious attack on the high school in the next 4 years, I think you ought to fire your school board, every single one of us.
Thank you. Mrs. McLaughlin.
Well, it is true that 4 years ago, as a result of some decision-making at that time, there were a number of us who became new board members. I ran at that point in time because I disagreed with the decision-making. I disagreed with the plan that had been chosen, and I soundly disagreed with the process which had produced that plan. So when I became a school board member, and even before that, I realized that this job is more than just about facilities. It was more than in the election, and it's more now than just about that one building. I very much understand the difficulties and the drawbacks and the challenges in that building. I have had 2 students, one who's a recent graduate and one who's currently in the building. I get it. I know that it's not the ultimate learning environment that we would like to have. That being said, there are things that need to be done in the proper order, and the proper order said, first we need to go through a master planning process so we knew where the priorities were in our district. While the high school is a priority, our youngest students are a priority as well. And what came out of that, as Dr. Pawelczyk said, was in the first phase that we would commence 2.5 elementary school projects fairly immediately and attempt to track the high school planning alongside that.
I would say that I did run in 2001 when there was no high school plan on the forefront. And then I was elected in 2007, and I said the whole time that I had wanted to serve on the board for something that wasn't just about the high school. So the high school, I think, was the catalyst, but there were other issues that I thought needed to be addressed, and I thought that I would be a good voice to help address them. I also had said at the time that I thought 4 years was plenty of time to get all the things done that we could get done, and I now realize, boy, that goes by really fast. And so I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't think that there's more that can be done and that I really want to finish what was started, and part of that was the high school plan. You may remember, though, that there was an elementary facilities plan that was adopted in 2000, 2001, and addressing Hauserville, Lamont, Boalsburg, Panorama, Ferguson were some of the things that were on that plan. And when they switched to working so closely on the high school in about 2006, 2005, 2006, they stopped the elementary facilities plan. So I think that we were very responsible in doing this district-wide master plan and addressing the fact that there were areas of the elementary master plan that had not been followed through on, and we put our resources into following through on that because our students start in kindergarten and they eventually get to the high school, but we needed to address some of the shortfalls in our elementary facilities.